Kahal Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Zevachim Daf Yomi Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph 17a1. Says the Gemara, Ela Yikal Mifrach, but we're going to ask the question, Hachi Yikal Mifrach Hachi. We could ask from both sides. Kol Chada v'Chada Teiku b'Duchtei. So each one you're just going to leave it in its place. Meaning, since you could come and start asking from both different sides to make a Kavachomer, we just leave it in its place. Okay? Tvul Yom. How do we know that a Tvul Yom is going to be Mechalel the Avodah? Menala. So says the Gemara, the time we learned to the right, Rabbi Simai Omer says, "Remember the Tvul Yom Shiva v'Chilel minai." How do we know? Tamulomar Kedoshim yu v'lo yechalelu. Right? What does it mean? You should be holy and don't disqualify. So imenu inyan letameh denafkim v'nezru. If you don't need it for tameh, because that we already learned from v'nezru mimnei Yisrael. Tenunyan Tvul Yom. So ask the Gemara, right? Ema teneu linyan lekorcha, right? Lekoreach korcha ulmashchi piat zakan. Maybe we're going to say that it's going to be because of another two different avirot. If you come and you do a korcha lemet, which basically you take off your hair for a dead person, or you're destroying your beard because of a dead person. And therefore we know that if a Kohen does this, right, he's going to be mechalel la'avodah. So answers the Gemara, Tvul Yom dimavad b'mita menalan. He says it's still better, right? He says why? He says Tvul Yom. What's the punishment if you're a Tvul Yom? So he says it's mita b'dei shamayim. How do you know that? He says was gemar chilu mitruma. So whoever's going to be pasul for truma is going to be mechalel avodah, and whoever's not going to be pasul for truma is not going to be mechalel avodah. So Amar Rabba comes and he says, "Lama li de katav lachana." Why do I need to say then tameh utvul yom mechusa kippurim? Why do I need all three? Right? Everyone knows what tameh is. Tameh is somebody that's tameh. Tvul yom, he went to the mikveh, right? But he had to wait till the nighttime. And mechusa kippurim, he didn't bring the korban yet. But there's three different stages in the tumah. So he says, if it was only written by Tameh, sheken metameh acherim, but it's going to be metameh other people. But once he does the Tvul Yom, he's not metameh other people. So Tvul Yom mechusa kippurim lo tamineh. So right, why? It's going to be pasul b'truma. Mechusa kippurim, Tvul Yom lo tamineh, sheken mechusa maaseh. You're lacking in action. You're bringing a korban. So you're lacking in action. So says the Gemara, mechad loati. I can't bring it from one of them, but I can bring it from both two of them. Tetichad metarte. So says the Gemara, which one do you not want to write it? If you don't want to write it, lo lichtov mechusa kippurim, and you're going to bring it from the other two, ma lehanach shekem psulim b'truma. Remember that it's pasul b'truma, meaning a tameh or tvul yom is pasul b'truma. Only mechusa kippurim is going to be kosher and eating truma. Ela, but rather lo lichtov rachmana, don't write it by the tvul yom, and you're going to bring it from the other ones. The my parachta was what you're going to ask. Ma lehanach shekem mechusim maaseh. You're lacking in action. Sof klisha la tumato. Yeah, but it's a much less tumah, right? You're missing other tumah. You zaynemu bet. Right? So he says, Kasavar, he holds, Mechusa Kippurim de Zav ke Zav Dami. He's going to say that a Zav, that he does Tevilah, and his head of Shemesh, even though he doesn't bring the Kapara, it's considered like a Kodshim to do with a Zav Gamur, that he didn't do Tevilah. Meaning, this Zav, until he doesn't bring the Korban, Upashut Zav. הוא כבר הלך למקווה, כבר עבר ערב שמש, doesn't matter. He's a Zav. He didn't bring the Korban. Okay? So says the Gemara, mechusa kippurim de zav ke zav dami. Are you going to tell me now mechusa kippurim of a zav is like a zav dami? Tonight it's actually machloket, right? Why? The Tanya was learned to the Braita. He says srefa onen srafa onen umechusa kippurim keshera. What does that mean? What happens if now you take the paraduma and an onen burnt it, or a mechusa kippurim burnt it? Yeah, it's going to be kosher. So he comes and he says, Yosef Abavli Omer, onen is going to be keshera. Mechusa kippurim is going to be sulam. Is it not talking about more savar? Mechusa kippurim zav dami. More savar zav dami. So says Gemara, no. Dechuli arma, according to everybody, it's considered like a zav. The hachma mipalgen. Here, what's the machlok between them? V'izat tahor al hatameh. Right? He says v'izat tahor miklal shu tameh. Limed al tvul yom shekasher bepara. So it comes out that the tvul yom is going to be kosher in the paraduma. Umor savar, more holds tumah dechol Torah kula. The tumah of the entire Torah, right? Umor savar tumah dehach parasha. It's only the tumah of this parasha, none of the entire Torah, which is right. There's only tumat met. Hilkach, therefore, onenu tvul yom the tameh sheretz teklil, where there's much lighter. All right, atu bekavachomer tvul yom the met. Aval mechusa kippurim the zav the chamir sheken tumah yotza alav migufo lo. So he wants to say like this. He wants to say anything to do with the onen tvul yom tameh sheretz. There, it's a much smaller tumah, so it's going to be mitameh. But he says over here, though, to do the zav, right, that it goes from the body. So therefore, he's going to be much more strict. Right? Mechusar begadim minala. How do you know that if you don't have the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, of the Kohen, sorry, regular Kohen? How do you know if you don't have the Kohen, the clothing of the Kohen that is going to be pasul? So imagine you go to the Bet Midrash, you're not wearing the clothing, huh? Mechusar begadim. So he says, what minala? Amar Rabbi Avhu, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Matu ba mishmei Rabbi Elazar b'Shimon. The Amar Kad pasuk says, v'chagatam otam amret Aron v'nav. Chashavia v'ayita lahem kiuna lechukat olam. What does that mean? Izman shebigdehem alehem kunata. Only when they have their clothing, they're considered kunatam alehem. And bigdehem alehem. But if they don't have their clothing, and kunatam alehem. Meaning, if you don't have your uniform, it's not like it's like a doctor that he wants to do a surgery without his uniform. If he doesn't have the uniform, he's not a doctor. He knows it. No, nada. For sure. They have a special power. Clothing is what makes you. Yeah? So he says, huh? 100%. The person. Okay.
No, but the real sin is Rabbi ne fait pas le. Don't make the.
Don't make the thing, but it's really good.
Don't look at the gift wrapping. Look what's
Like what's inside. So mechusar begadim menalan. He says, Amar Rabbi Avu, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Umatu ba mishmei Rabbi Elazar. He says the pasuk only when they have their clothing. So says the Gemara, Me'acha they learn it from here. Me'acha nafka, they learn it from there. The time we learned to the right, how do we know that if somebody starts drinking that they're going to be mechalel da'avodah? How do we know that if somebody is lacking their clothing or they didn't do the kiddush shadayim raglayim minayin? How do we know? Comes teach you hoka ligzera shava. It's a gzera shava. So says the Gemara, if over there, have a mina hanimile ba'avodah zar. You're going to be chayav mita, אבל עבודה שאין זר חייב מיתה, מלא, כמשמען, that's what we learn, that ויתה להם כהונה חוקת עולם, is to do with all the clothing as well.